Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, as the case may be. This is Arthur Raguette with Ultria, and I'd like to welcome everyone to our Frankly Friday session. This is the second of a three-part series on measuring return on investment and cost savings, as well as sort of business case development for AI-powered contract lifecycle management platforms. Today's topic will be return on investment for revenue, how to multiply revenue with AI-powered contract lifecycle management. A little bit of housekeeping. We have a couple of minutes to the top of the hour. So for those of you who have joined already, if you're not familiar with our platform, you'll have the ability to ask questions throughout. There will be some polling, so please pay attention. Your opinions really do matter to us, and it helps us continue to create content that we hope you find educational, if not occasionally entertaining. We're going to go a couple of more minutes. Again, thanks for joining. We'll do some more housekeeping as we let some additional folks join in. So being a person who absolutely abhors silence, I'll just keep chatting while folks continue to join. We have about another minute and a half until the top of the hour. And I see that attendees are just coming into the room. So we may start a minute or two after the hour, but I promise we won't delay much more than that. For those of you that are new to our platform, you will have the opportunity to ask questions throughout. I'll try to catch them while I can. Otherwise, we may wait till the end. There will be a sort of question and answer session as we wrap up. You will all be muted. Not that we don't want to hear from you. We just want to hear from you one at a time. So thus the Q&A, as well as there will be some crowdsourced polling that'll happen throughout the event. So please do pay attention for that. And we'll try to get a good read on the audience. This is as much for your benefit as it is for ours. Good to see what your peers may be doing with respect to today's topic, which is leveraging contract lifecycle management to multiply contract revenue. Last 2 weeks ago, we had a session on how to build a business case with respect to soft versus hard numbers. And then 2 weeks from now, we'll be doing one which I think will be very, very widely attended, focused on cost savings and how to get hard dollar reductions in costs from your CLM and use that information to also help propagate and prolong your contract lifecycle center of excellence or your project teams. So like when I said center of excellence, another 4 folks joined, so we're going to give everyone another couple of minutes to log in, work out their audio and video difficulties, and we'll get started in just a few minutes. If you are having problems with video, but you can hear me audio, then please do chat to Ultria Inc. host, who you'll see on the WebEx participant panel, and they will certainly step you through any challenges you might have. If you're having trouble hearing me, well, then anything I say now is not going to help. But please do, if you are online with friends and they can't hear me, have them also reach out to Ultria Inc. and they'll work through some of the audio challenges that you might be facing. For those of you who did attend our last session at the end of May, I'm thinking May 29th, we had some audio issues. I'd like to think that we have taken care of those this time around. For those of you who did attend the earlier event, the recording or re-recording of that event, which turns out was much shorter than the live event, is available from your sales rep or somebody in our marketing team. So just do reach out and ask them to share a copy. Over the years, I have been interrupted by fire alarms, once by the fire department and twice by the police. So let's hope that now that we've got the audio straightened out, that there'll be no undue interruptions. So about 2 minutes after the hour, I just saw another 2 people click in. So I'm going to give everyone another minute, or I'll just introduce very, very slowly. For some of you, depending on your method of connection, you may see me on video. I will promise to turn this off so as not to be distracting once we start the presentation. Excellent. So let's begin. First and foremost, thank you very much for taking time out of your Friday morning or afternoon or evening, as the case may be, to join us for our Frankly Friday series. This is the second of a 3-parter focused on business case and return on investment justification for contract lifecycle management. 2 weeks ago, on May 29th, we focused on sort of hard versus soft justifications for the business case to implement and to really modernize or digitize or transform the contract lifecycle management process with an AI-powered CLM. Today's session will be more focused on how to amplify or multiply revenue through the benefits that a contract lifecycle management platform, especially one that is AI enabled or AI powered, can bring to the table. 2 weeks from today, if my math is correct, should be, I'm going to say June 26th, we'll do our third and final for this particular sort of grouping of sessions, and that will be focused on supply chain agility and optimizing cost savings by using a contract lifecycle platform. I think in today's market, which everyone is sort of presuming to be somewhat more bearish than bullish, every dollar saved is the same as $10 sold, and I think we'll see a lot more interest there as well. So let us begin. A little bit about me, actually very little about me because I know who I am. My name is Arthur Raguette. I'm the Executive Vice President and co-founder of Ultria. I'm very proud to really represent our entire team today. They have been working nonstop throughout the last 100 or so days of unusual working environments, remote officing, etc., to continue to drive value for our customers. And I'd like to think that there's a great opportunity to sort of applaud or clap for them. They certainly have been doing a stellar job making sure that we continue to not just keep our doors open, but thrive. Today's agenda is really, as I had just mentioned, focused on the revenue side of the contract management world, and quite specifically, how to be able to leverage and amplify revenue through the use of a contract lifecycle solution. I've been asked to sort of start off with a poll. So I did promise to those who were listening earlier that we did want to hear from you. We just wanted to hear from you, not necessarily all at once. So from a poll position, and the poll has now popped up on screen, which of the following contracting tasks have been extra difficult during this sort of COVID-19 lockdown, work from home, stay at home, etc.? A, reviewing contracts for force majeure clauses. B, requesting for new contract intakes. C, accessing all ongoing and legacy contracts. D, monitoring contract performance. E, closing deals, contract deals, I guess. Or F, all of the above. Please take a few minutes. We've got 45 seconds on the clock. You've got about another 4 minutes. We may close it a little bit early. A, reviewing contracts for force majeure. B, requesting new contracts. That's the intake process. C, accessing your existing, currently ongoing, as well as historic contracts. D, monitoring contract performance. C, closing deals. Or F, all of the above. I'm going to suggest to our poll keepers that we close the poll in 2 minutes. Basically another 30 seconds. Reminder to everybody, if you've got questions in the meantime, please do the Q&A tab. I know we've only got one slide in, but you may have simple questions. I may have simple answers. And Poll Master, if you could go ahead and close the poll and share with us in percentage terms how people have answered our polls. Let me try that again. Poll Master, please. Okay, I'm assuming we have some audio difficulty. Hopefully it's not me, and we'll continue on. We'll come back to that. So, in general terms, contract life cycle for managing revenue and improving efficiency, sort of across the board. There's an interesting number that IACCM, the International Association of Contract and Commercial Managers, has published throughout the years. And the most recent is that 9.2% of annual revenue is often lost through weaknesses in the contracting process. So sort of coming out of the box, we know that there's money to be made or revenue to be gained by managing our contracts better. And in parallel to that, we're looking at being able to increase the efficiency of an organization through the contracting process. And by leveraging artificial intelligence and natural language process-enabled contract platforms like the Ultria CLM, we're able to look at an actual sort of, I'll say, the control of cost gains or increase for the cost of simple contracting. So in inefficient organizations, the cost of managing a simple contract has risen by 38% in the last 6 years by $1,900 per contract. For those that are most efficient, the cost of running a contract has risen only by 9% in 6 years, effectively $300. So we're looking at both being able to enable the efficiency of the process and just as substantially being able to increase or to amplify or to multiply revenue. Now, when we were preparing this and we were talking to a couple of customers, one of the questions that came up was this concept of revenue recognition. So I thought maybe I'd start today's session by just spending 3 or 4, maybe 5 minutes on revenue recognition or Rev Rec and what the rules are and why having a CLM helps you manage this. So revenue recognition really is the sort of standards rule. I'll say standards. The Financial Accounting Standards Board, that's a U.S. entity, the FASB or FASB, as well as the IAS, the International Accounting Standards Board, has defined a consistent way to recognize revenue, which from a financial term means, when can I say that I've actually made the money? Sort of dumbing that down quite a bit. And this is really in a sort of a reaction to organizations who may have front-loaded their revenue or their sales numbers. A simple example might be, if I have a 12-month membership to the gym, does the gym get to choose to recognize all of the revenue in the first month, or do they have to recognize or sort of report their sales versus revenue differently? So the first month I sign up, that's a sale. The actual revenue occurs over the course of the 12-month subscription or membership to the gym. Now, this gets down to the fundamental of when does the contract start? When does the contract end? That's fairly easy. But in the real world, we have certain deliverables. We have obligations. We have entitlements that we receive coming back from delivering on those obligations. And tracking revenue is tantamount to tracking your cash flow and overall financial performance. To go a little bit deeper, the 5 basic steps of revenue recognition are: first, make sure that you can identify clearly the contract with the customer. You then need to be able to separate the performance obligations that you have in that contract. You then need to determine the transaction price that you expect to be paid, both overall for the contract, but very much more specifically, the price per obligation to your customer. And then last but not least, you're able to recognize the revenue as you satisfy your obligation. And then for those of you with finance backgrounds, you recognize the cash, obviously, on receipt typically. So how does a CLM help us go through this 5-step process? Well, a contract lifecycle platform gives you that built-in or automatic, or we thought to think of it as a built-in capability to identify your contracts with your customers. It's the purpose, or a good chunk of the purpose, for a CLM. Now, you tend to do this, in our case, in the cloud, globally, using something like Amazon Web Services, in a secure, robust repository that also has audit and tamper-proof. So that in order to meet step 1, you have to identify that this is, in fact, the contract that you signed with the client. You've got both signatures, you've got the non-repudiation, i.e. the contract cannot be backed out of, and you know that the people who signed are, in fact, authentic to their signature. The second step of separating the performance obligations really is something that advanced contract lifecycle platforms support. So this is being able to break out deliverable milestones, obligations, and then the payment or entitlement that you receive on delivering those obligations, which also sort of helps us fast track to steps 3 and steps 4. But this simplifies the identification of the individual transaction price down to the individual obligation, and then it is delivering on those obligations that is aligned to revenue recognition. Effectively, good contract lifecycle management supports the finance and treasury team's job, predominantly finance team's job, of ensuring that organizations are compliant with the revenue recognition rules, both at a, I'll say, governing body level, as well as at a corporate standards level. So moving past, now that we've sort of defined and reminded everybody what revenue rec means, let's get into how to manage revenue resiliency or identify revenue resiliency, as well as increase revenue growth. So there are a couple of things that we see when we look at organizations who are, sort of excellent or excelling at keeping revenue sticky and knowing what revenue they have that is sticky or resilient, as well as growing revenue in typically a cross-sell or upsell environment. Again, as we enter into a more bearish than bullish economy, if I pronounce that correctly, we often think about how to sell to the same people that we've been selling to. How do we leverage our customer relationships? How do we increase value, both by what we deliver, but also what we receive? So a lot of this really ties to being able to get a better handle on when things renew or when things expire and may be able to renew. And you want to be able to measure and support the business justification by being able to sort of initially track or understand how much more successful has your team been when your team gets advanced knowledge. When people have to react, they make snap decisions. And not that emotional decisions are inherently bad, but they are inherently less than optimal. And that decisions that are made with both emotion and fact tend to have better value for all parties concerned. And that requires time to think, time to analyze, time to gather data, time to prepare, time to collaborate, both internally with your own shareholders, but occasionally even with the external party. And what we have found is that for those organizations who have on average 30 days advance notice of an upcoming renewal transaction, are able to increase the transaction size by 4.5%. What's just as interesting, and sort of proof to the pudding, if you will, is that for those organizations that had 45 days advance notice, so a 50% gain in advance notice, they saw a 5.3% increase in transaction revenue. So clearly having advance notice, and then having advance notice with information to back it up, gives you the ability to increase revenue from existing customers. Now, just take another example, I think, of good preparation. Let's say you have a current customer and they're paying $10,000 a year for an annual subscription or service, but something that basically takes 12 months to deliver. Your account team, your sales team, or your customer success team, depending on how you word them, when they have a chance to look at all of the contract amendments or scope change orders or net new task orders that have been sort of added to this annual service or annual service retainer, your account team then comes up with the idea of a renewal contract that's 10% higher than last year's annual. When the customer sees this and understands that you've taken the time to analyze the work that has been done with the customer, and a good account manager is going to ensure that by signing for this 10%, the customer is getting more than a 10% value, the customer eagerly signs. What this does is create predictable and very resilient revenue and increases the customer relationship value on both a factual and also an emotional perspective. Getting more advanced notice simply drives to better business. So the sooner that you can begin your internal approval and structuring process, the more likely the negotiation process will end in your favor, giving you the ability to manage and to review milestones and obligations over the past, perhaps restructure, but also review the entitlements that you've received and the entitlements expected. This allows you to run that internal assessment, and this could also be somewhat true on the buy side, but very much on the sell side, to make sure that the parties' concerns are well reflected in the contract. It also gives you some time to do market and competitive analysis. So in addition to giving you a little bit of leverage as you walk to the table, the ability to also enable a greater level of upsell or cross-sell. And this is not just about the revenue, although that is sort of the topic of the day. It's also about reinforcing the relationship. Because what we see from firms like Marketo and others who are involved in the post-sell transaction tracking is that 90% of customer value for business-to-business commerce is obtained after the initial sale. And that 70 to 95% of that incremental revenue comes from upsells and renewals. Ultimately, this leads to increased customer lifetime value. And I think, probably more importantly, builds stronger customer relationships. Now, how do you leverage your contract assets to do this? Because this is really where the CLM shines. Well, you should use your contract lifecycle platform to really monitor in a proactive way your active contracts. So as thresholds approach, as milestones approach, Notify your account team, your customer success team, to reach out and touch someone. Hey, you're coming up on a quarterly quality assurance visit. Is everything doing well? The QC team should be there next week. Or in today's world, the QC will be on a Zoom conference next week, so make sure you wear a nice sweater. But these are great opportunities to enhance the relationship. Additionally, you can look at different kinds of contracts that might be out there across an organization. Understand your audience, understand their trends. Hey, would it be any better if we changed your termination date to coincide with this particular month, which is when you end up signing anyway? It's a great level of customer outreach to show a level of empathy and to put your money where your mouth is. The ability to track that customer journey, especially your larger customers, to see how they react across different products and offers, and in many ways to feed this kind of information into your sales and marketing platforms. The thing we often forget about contracts, it is the memorialization of the agreement between the two parties and is incredibly objective. It's not subjective. Right? Revenue team members tend to have good days and bad days. I certainly know that. But contract and contract performance, very black and white. So it's good to be able to take these contract assets, these objective memorializations of relationships, and stack customer performance and your own performance against those goals and objectives. So with easy access to customer contracts, account teams and customer success teams can really make sure that entitlements are lived up to, that payments are made, milestones once delivered have been paid for. I was chatting with a team member yesterday, and the subject of money came up, and he said, it's awkward sometimes to talk about money. It's often what makes the world go round, which sounds very jaded. I don't mean to sound that capitalistic, but it's the way that we keep score in many ways. So working with your customers and understanding the financial entitlements and being upfront about them and being aware on both parties, I think is tantamount to a healthy relationship. And being able to manage and get transparency into contractual entitlements throughout the contract's operational lifespan is absolutely key. Often we think about contract lifecycle and how it can help accelerate deal closures. And the faster I close a deal, the faster I get contributory revenue or profit. And those are great reasons to justify a budget. I mean, absolutely. It was part of our topic 2 weeks ago. But that contract that you accelerated runs for months or years even. So taking a week out of a 6-week negotiation cycle, bonus. I got 5 days of business flow. But being able to optimize a relationship over the next 60 months, over a 5-year contract, is absolutely stellar. We've seen both from the market, but probably more importantly from our customers, that we're looking at a 5 to 7% revenue recapture or net new revenue come in when our customers are using post-award compliance, tracking obligations and entitlements through the CLM software after the contract's been executed or signed. So while all that is all said and all well and good, I mean, these are long-term strategies to resilient and sustainable revenue, all good goals. But sometimes folks are looking to make up for, 100 days of slowdown because people aren't around. The CLM has more timely impact, perhaps, with the ability to leverage and to really deploy very quickly. You can then take advantage of shortened cycle time for contract closing and negotiating. Being able to maintain secure, centralized contracts while people are working staggered shifts. I was talking with one of our customers 2 days ago, and they were mentioning that half their team is sort of working an old manufacturing shift of almost 7 to 3, and the other crew is coming in later in the day and staying into early evening. It makes getting contracts signed and monitored a little bit harder. And certainly the cloud deployed as well as centralized platform is a wonderful enabler. Likewise, the ability to define and measure key performance indicators across your contracts. By being able to very quickly use things like templates and clauses and automated workflows and built-in collaboration, and then finally e-signatures, you can reduce your sales cycle anywhere from 7 to 33%, just in terms of the contract negotiation and close cycle. Being able to provide visibility to everyone on your team in both pre and post negotiation really helps you track these entitlements as well. Before we get into a deep use case for that, let's try the polls one more time. And which of these activities would you prioritize when implementing an intuitive AI-driven solution? And we're going to start. We should see a clock come up. Otherwise, there'll be no donuts for the polling team on Monday. A, contract authoring. B, contract reviews and negotiations. C, contract expiry and renewal. D, post-award contract performance. E, contractual obligations and compliance. Or F, all of the above. I don't know, I'm giving our poll team a little bit of a hard time. They will get donuts no matter what. They'll get really good donuts, though, if this polling works. So which of the activities would you prioritize implementing an intuitive AI-driven CLM solution? A, contract authoring. B, contract reviews and negotiations. C, contract renewals and expiries. D, post-award contract performance monitoring. E, obligation and compliance management. Or F, all of the above. And I'll just raise a quick audio to the poll master. Poll master, are you running?
Yes, Arthur. Yeah, so the results are in, and interestingly, we have around 50% of the respondents on saying that all of the above. So they're prioritizing all of these activities. And the rest have been equally split between option B, contract reviews and negotiations, and and option C, contract expiries and renewal.
Perfect. So just to summarize, half of them, or 50% of our audience, has said all of the above, and the other half have been split between contract reviews and negotiations and expiries and renewals. That makes a lot of sense to us. What I'm a little surprised by is that I didn't hear as much around post-award and compliance. So we'll have to take a look at that in the future. So before we continue to move on to the next level, which is talking about some of the sort of value add calculators that we've been working on, I'd like to maybe just give a tangential or a story of one of our customers. Talking about how to accelerate revenue with a CLM, and specifically an AI-powered CLM. This organization was able to reduce their close cycle in terms of the contract negotiation cycle from, I believe it was 37 days, and that's 37 business days, down to 30 business days. So they were able to take 7 days out of their days sales outstanding, for those of you who are finance folks. And as much as that sounds like a number, and 7 is a great number, what they found was that their average contributory profit, okay, not revenue, but profit, per contract was $125,000 per day. So for those of you who are either doing the math in your head or just reach for your mobile phone, because who in the world keeps a calculator on their desk anymore, 7 days at $125 a day, just a hair over $1 million. Now, that sounds, I think, pretty impressive. And then it comes to how many contracts a month or contracts a year are these guys running through that generate this kind of number. So on these high-value contracts, they are effectively doing about 70 of these a month. So net new profit per month due to shortened sales cycle, $70 million, 12 months out of the year, we can all do the math, 840 mil. Really easy to justify a contract lifecycle solution when you have those kinds of numbers in hand. So when we look at revenue multiplication, or revenue addition, you've got a couple of key areas that are worth remembering when it comes to either justifying your first purchase of a contract lifecycle platform, or justifying the upgrade from maybe a repository or contract management system to one with a full lifecycle view, or a lifecycle view with artificial intelligence and natural language processing. But it could be just those, increase or decrease of day sales outstanding to realize revenue faster and increase profit quite often. It could also be based on the 5 to 7% average net gain by having advanced notice of expiry and renewal to take your current customers, people that are already buying from you, and increasing the net revenue per customer is one of the most cost-effective, time-effective, and I will argue one of the most resilient ways to grow your sales as an organization. For those of you who are attending and have more of a procurement angle, certainly happy to one, chat through that, or B, certainly join our session in 2 weeks where we'll focus really just on cost savings. But a lot of these same benefits, getting advance notice of an upcoming expiry or renewal, understanding where you are in terms of your volume level discounts and tiers, the same kind of upside revenue percentages that we may see in sales can also be, I'll say savings gains for those folks who are focused on buy side. As they say, all contracts, 50% of them are third party, so there's some back and forth on both sides. We have up on our website an updated, what we call it generally an ROI calculator. Some places I would call it a savings calculator, but it also has revenue impact aspects to it. So for the purpose of today's presentation, I've gently renamed it to Impact Calculator. I invite everyone who's on our call today to go up, visit our site, reach out to somebody, and have us work through a couple of cases with you. No obligation, but the result is a personalized report, obviously not for your personal use, but a highly configured, customized report for you and your company that shows where you might get the most value out of an advanced CLM. And we take a pretty good pass, I think, at separating out where the ROI is from a CLM perspective in terms of net new revenue, as well as where net new revenue may be directly attributed to the use of contract analytics and our Orbit artificial intelligence engine. Now, I know we've got about 10 more minutes. I do see a couple of questions that have come in. I will very quickly sort of go through a highlight on who we are. This will be old hat for some of you, but I think you all know that this really isn't about an advertisement. Ultria offers AI-powered contract lifecycle solutions. Our contract repository is used and can effectively pull metadata out of contracts. Those can be third-party paper or your legacy, and that gives you enough to start getting some contract analytics and management right out of the bat. Additionally, we have a robotic process automation enabled intake portal. This is all about accelerating your intake time, very low risk, very high reward to shorten your contract process. This can also deliver self-service responses for things like non-disclosures or simple purchases or repeat sales orders, and is also extendable, by the way, into Salesforce and Dynamics. There is a post-award compliance engine that leverages the artificial intelligence power of Orbit to do clause and risk identification. This is very useful once the contract's been signed. It's also just as useful in the authoring stage to make sure that if you have third-party paper, that you've been identified of any unusual, risky, or just plain squirrely language embedded within your clauses. And then last but not least, our Orbit AI platform which effectively separates from the core CLM the AI components associated with our platform. The ability to extract metadata, to identify clauses, to identify content intent within clauses, where folks may have tried to been, you'd be surprised, I'm sure, mislead or otherwise obfuscate true meaning. So that is embodied within the Orbit Explorer, the Orbit Guide for Intake, and Orbit Protector for risk and clause mitigation. I'll pause here maybe to answer a couple of questions with this sort of nice little infographic of the Orbit platform. What do we have by way of questions? And we'll pause here. PC. The question says, okay, you started with a walkthrough on revenue recognition rules. Not a there we go. There's the rest of the question. How can a contract lifecycle management solution, CLM, like Ultria, make sure revenue rec rules are followed? Wow. Okay. This is sort of an interesting question. So yeah, we understand the value of RevRec. If we've got folks on who are attending who are coming out of sales management or sales ops or legal ops with a leaning towards sales, or even treasury controller or finance, being able to ensure that RevRec rules are enforceable from the very start is sort of key. So one of the things that a contract platform like Ultria does is, as the contracts are being written, whether it is a best first draft coming out of a heads down sales op running Salesforce or Dynamics, or whether it's something that's being crafted by a counsel or a non-attorney legal professional working with the sales team, let's ensure that based on the kind of good or service being sold, that the right template is being used. So if I'm selling a support service and that support service is effectively billed or delivered monthly, let's ensure that the right template is being used and the right obligations and milestones are set as part of the template, and that those are mandatory in terms of being filled in by the sales exec or by the contract author. Could be something as simple as, hey, this is a support contract. Support contracts have 12 equal payments, right? Or quarterly payments. Great. That's the payment side. What's the actual obligation? Obligation is to provide monthly service. So at what day in the month does it start and stop, right? That's simply a matter of capturing data on the intake to ensure that you've got the data on the back end. Now, further, if you have a team that may not want to be bogged down, maybe you have a high velocity, low average value team. Not that they're low value, but the contracts are low value for anybody who just snickered. That you have the ability to have someone else in the workflow, because you are using a contract lifecycle platform, make those sort of enhancements or value adds. So someone can effectively flip a deal quickly, going from an opportunity or a deal book, into a contract, but then have someone in sales operation or sales finance team ensure that before this gets routed for approval, that your milestones are clearly delineated, that those obligations and the price per obligation are clearly tagged, and to force that, so to speak, as part of the process. Maybe as a tangential, but I think very much a related topic is, if most of your sales contracts are on customer paper, how do you ensure that the customer paper is appropriately structured or documented or captured for adherence to revenue recognition? And that's where the artificial intelligence intake process makes a world of difference. So that when your customer sends their paper into your sales exec and the sales exec opens it up and is ready to put his John Hancock right on the bottom line, hopefully with an embedded electronic signature, what they need to do instead is to get that approved. So on the intake process, the embedded Orbit engine within Ultria CLM will read it, understand that this is an annual contract for X kind of professional services, or even this could be a direct raw material sell that you are delivering every month. identify those, raise them, extract the dates if they're part of a schedule set, and then promote those to the user to fill in any missing data before it continues on. Enforcing and enabling revenue recognition capture. The third way that the CLM can enforce this, I didn't realize there were so many ways, I got to be careful of my time, is that if there is a clause that talks about the periodic measurement, whether it's a true up or whether it's simply the delivery schedule, that the Ultria software can identify that as a clause and flag that this now needs to be routed through a particular individual for RevRec compliance. And that person can be ad hoc, automatically added to the workflow to make that happen. So I hope that answered the question. If not, fire back on the Q&A tab, and I'll try to address that either before we wrap up, or we'll get it addressed post-fact. And if I totally missed the understanding, or if I misunderstood your question, we'll try again. No worries. Here's another question, and okay. This looks more like a Salesforce kind of question. Just paraphrasing. Okay, this person is asking, if my team members from sales are using a CRM, they name Salesforce, and are not active CLM users, how can my account team get the benefits of the contract information when they're not actively using the CLM? Great question. If you've got either heads down folks, and really this doesn't have to be just heads down high volume, this could be true of anybody who's got a relatively large sales team. They are likely using an order management or a customer relationship management platform. How do they get updates about contract behavior, contract volumes, just a simple thing, when contracts are going to expire? You'd like to think that that's part of the CRM or part of the contract record. It may be, but oftentimes we find people have not necessarily configured their platform for that. What Ultria does is when you have contracts that have been stored and you have contract owners, and you can have multiple contract owners, as you approach these kinds of, they're not really milestones, but the alerts and the scheduled events or tasks or obligations, the CLM will notify these individuals, and by the way, both internal as well as external, if you wish, that there's a significant event about to occur, okay? And you can change what that notification window looks like. So I might want to send to a customer success rep, hey, you've got a renewal coming up in 45 days for, the Ultria, CLM company. And here's a link to look at the metadata and due date performance, as well as the contract performance of that particular company against this contract, so that in one click I have information that I need to help make a decision, and that maybe I'm enabling that person to then export it or to save it. Or maybe when I send out a monthly report, that I tell everybody, here's who's going to renew in the next 60 days. And here are certain key elements and links so that I can generate a report out to Susan. Say, Susan, here's everything that's going to expire in the next 90 days. And here's information about it, and here are links to go see it. So even though these people are not active CLM users, they have access to information within the repository. And if they are Salesforce users, we do have a built-in managed application for Salesforce that will let them see this information directly from their Salesforce view. So again, maybe answer that a little bit longer than I needed to. We are at the top of our time. Please do follow it with other questions. Today has been all about sort of the impact and the return on investment that a CLM has for multiplying revenues using an AI-powered contract lifecycle solution, Ultria CLM with Orbit. In 2 weeks, on June 26th, we'll be running a session specifically on hard dollar cost savings. That's the focus on how an AI-powered CLM like Ultria CLM can help you leverage and create actual hard currency cost reductions. I'd like to thank everybody for taking time out of their day. For those of you on the East Coast, time to go to lunch. Everyone else, enjoy the rest of your day, morning, or evening, as the case may be. Thank you, and bye-bye.